Okay, friends, we are over here at Creation Station, and we are going to be making a mammoth-sized batch of homemade melt and pour soap base from scratch, which I will be giving you the recipe to right now. This is my normal recipe that I use in all of my soaps that I make. Sometimes I switch between the two. The one that is listed below in the description box of most of my videos, that's the Big Bubble Blend. I will switch back and forth between the one I'm going to give to you right now and that one that's down on the bottom, but primarily this is the one that I use minus the beeswax. I did add beeswax in this particular batch of melt and pour for a couple of different reasons. One, it's going to help with the hardness. Two, it's going to help prevent rancidity and those dreaded orange spots. And three, it's going to help prevent any ash that might form because this is still regular soap. So right here I am checking the temperature. We are at 151 degrees on my oils, which have already been melted all down, and we are at 164 on my lye solution. So the recipe is going to be as follows: 2% beeswax, 29% coconut oil, 30% palm oil, 10% olive oil, 24% rice bran, and 5% castor oil. Inside of this, I also have kale and clay already mixed into all of those melted oils. For this particular batch, I went with 1 tablespoon per pound of oil, so there is 12 tablespoons, which is the equivalent of 6 ounces. Now I'm going to go ahead and pour the lye solution right on into the batch here. I'm using a strainer because there was quite a bit of lye lint on the bottom of the container that I could see. So we're just going to go ahead and use a strainer to prevent that from getting into the batch. To my lye solution, I also added sodium lactate at 1 tablespoon for every 2 pounds. So I've got 6 tablespoons total, which is the equivalent of 3 ounces. So I'm just going to go ahead and start mixing everything in here now that I've got my lye solution into the pool. This, by the way, is a 12-pound batch, and when all is said and done, we're going to double that amount after we add in all of our solvents. One quick note I wanted to say about solvents: it's completely up to you guys and what you think works best for you and what you are trying to achieve out of your soap base. I have tried them all. I have tried them individually. I have tried combinations of them in all different types of combinations. And so what I have found works best for me is equal portions of sorbitol, propylene glycol, and glycerin. And I use all of those solvents at 16% of my total oil weight for each one of those. So that equates into 31 ounces total for each one of these in this batch that I am making today. So we have 31 ounces of sorbitol, 31 ounces of propylene glycol, and 31 ounces of glycerin that we will be adding a little bit later on after the cook to make everything back into a liquid state. Also, to let you guys know that I am not going to be scenting this batch at all, obviously, because this is going to just be my melt and pour soap base. I have a 35% lye solution and a 5% superfat. Again, this is a 12-pound batch, but that's going to be doubled by the time that all is said and done. If I were to be making a clear melt and pour base, I would need to use different solvents in the forms of alcohol. I would also change the combinations of the oils and or butters that I would be using to try to use as much white oils and butters as I possibly could. For instance, coconut, castor, tallow, possibly lard, but sometimes that has a yellowish tinge to it. So I might want to steer clear of that. Some people would add some stearic acid to it. I've tried that before, and in my personal experience, that just makes the end product rubbery and plastic feeling, as does, in my opinion, using just one of these solvents on its own whether it be the sorbitol, the propylene glycol, or the glycerin. In my experience, it just feels like plastic and rubbery, and the end bar is just like you can almost bend it. I just don't like anything about the texture or the feel by using just one solvent all on its own. And I am a huge proponent of synergy and using ingredients synergistically with one another. In most of my formulations, you will see that I use at least 2 of the same type of ingredient. Most of the time, it's 3. As is the case with most formulations when you're doing soap, try to steer towards a 60% hard oil to 40% soft oil. I'm just checking my temperature here again. It's at 171 now that everything has been added, and I am stick blending and giving my arms quite the workout. You want to just keep on doing this, you guys. Just keep on stick blending, keep on stick blending. We're just about at the point now where I'm getting ready to cover this up and let this go ahead and cook for about 5 minutes. So I've gone ahead and done that, and now we've uncovered, and you can see all the sides over there. Everything is bubbling up. It's cooking. It's doing its thing. So now we got to mash all that sucker right on back down. And you're going to see in a few seconds here, things are going to start to volcano a little bit, as they do with hot process. And that's what this is at this point. I'm a cold process soap maker, but because we're adding heat to everything, we are doing hot process to make our homemade melt and pour. Now, if I wanted this soap batch to be as white as I could possibly get it to be, I would omit the beeswax and the rice bran and sub those out with different oils, probably the palm too. I might want to use maybe even a vegetable shortening because it's really pure white, whereas the palm oil is got a little bit of a beige, tannish, vanilla-y. Is that a word? Vanilla-y color to it. So keep that in mind. You can take this recipe and tweak it however you would like. Take any recipe. You guys can make melt and pour soap base out of your own recipe. All you have to do is just add your solvents. So I am really getting quite the workout here with this arm. I'm switching arms because this really is. You gotta beat this back down into submission, baby. It's gonna start volcanoing on you. Don't be afraid of that. See how it is? See how it's rising up? Whee! Look at it. Ain't science cool? Don't be afraid, you guys. But also, don't ever turn your back at this point. This is when you need to be really diligent about standing here and mixing this back down into your pot. Whether you are doing a really small batch in a crock pot or a humongous batch like this in a big old turkey roaster. This is a 22-pound turkey roaster. If you turn your back, this is going to volcano up and out of your pot, no matter what type of a pot you are using. It's going to go everywhere. It's going to cause a mess. It's going to be dangerous. Please don't do that. Don't ever turn your back when you are trying to make hot process of any kind, because that's what it's going to do. Volcano up like this. So you just need to keep on stirring, whether you use your whisk to do that, whether you use your stick blender, not buzzing it, which is what I'm doing right now, or you can buzz it if you'd like. I kind of go back and forth between buzzing and not buzzing, but I'm continuously stirring because I'm, trying to get this to get back down to a manageable state here where it stops volcanoing. Now, I had mentioned before about the superfat that I used in this. This is just my regular recipe, so I did want a superfat in this. If I was making clear, transparent melt and pour, I would have a 0% superfat because we want this to be as crystal clear as can be. I used to make clear melt and pour soap on my own. I don't like it. I don't like the feel. I don't like the texture. I particularly don't like the smell. It's awful. It's very, very rubbery. I actually did Amy Warden's challenge last year when everybody went into that one challenge where we were all going to be making the clear, transparent melt and pour soap base from scratch. And I followed that recipe to a T. I'm extremely anal when it comes to doing everything creation-wise. Y'all should know that by now. There's nothing wrong with that either. Some of y'all are messy soapers. There's nothing wrong with that. Some of you all are really particular soapers and really clean and neat and tidy. That's me, and there's nothing wrong with that either. Anyways, I did the challenge. I tried the soap. I tried everything, the recipe, blah, blah, blah. Didn't like anything about it. That is not a diss for the creator of that recipe or the challenge or anything else. My personal experience, I just don't like it. So when I need and want a clear, transparent base, I just buy it when it goes on sale. You know what I mean? It's no big deal. I don't use the transparent very much. So we are done now. Everything is calmed down. There's no volcanoing left. We're going to put the lid back on here and let this start cooking a little bit longer so that it can start getting into the Vaseline stage. But as you can see, nothing is rising, nothing is volcanoing. We're good to go now to the next phase. So we're just going to cover that and get moving on. All right, so we let that cook for about 5 more minutes. It's starting to get into the Vaseline stage. Not quite yet, but it's getting there. The main point is that it's no longer in the mashed potato phase. Why do we call this food? I don't know. Whoever invented that, y'all? Really? I don't know. To me, this looks like plaster of Paris. Anyways, I'm mashing the crap down because we're getting ready to start adding our solvents here momentarily. So in this bucket, I have all 3 of my solvents mixed together. Again, we have sorbitol, propylene glycol, and vegetable glycerin, each at 16% of my total oil weight, which equivalent is 31 ounces of each one of those. So I have that all mixed in, and I'm just going to start adding a little bit at a time to see how we go. Sometimes you need all of it, sometimes you don't. You'll see a little bit later, I am going to wind up using all of it because this is a monster batch, and I really needed this to go back into its liquid form. So let's start adding a little bit, and you'll see here, it's really just a little bit. It's going to take me a few passes before I get to the end here. This is probably the biggest batch that I've made. All in total on this day. Now, this is a several-day process for me, but in total, I made 45 pounds of this. Now, in the beginning, I started melting down all of my hard oils, and it went all the way up to the top of this 22-pound turkey roaster. So that's no bueno because I didn't even add my liquid oils yet, nor have I added my lye water, nor have I added any of my solvents. So obviously this thing was not going to hold 45 pounds worth of soap base, and then you add all the other stuff. So what I wound up doing was actually sectioning this off, and I did this 4 times. So I have enough melt and pour now to last me from now until the end of eternity, really, because I don't use melt and pour soap all that much. I really basically just use it for embeds and kiddo soaps for the kiddos. Other than that, I'm not a melt and pour soap maker. So as you saw just there, I added some more of the solvents. I am now kind of scraping the sides, scraping the bottom. You can see just from adding just that little bit, of course, yes, it's still really, really lumpy. And so now it looks like oatmeal. We might as well continue on talking about food and that our soap looks like food. So first it was mashed potatoes, and now it's really, really lumpy oatmeal. But we're going to keep on going and adding these solvents until we get to a point where it's liquid enough to pour it into our molds. So enjoy. So I went ahead and let the solvents cook for another few minutes, covered that up, cooked, stirred a little bit more, took my stick blender to that one more time, and now we are ready to start pouring. And you can see just how liquid this is now, nice and fluid. You can also see that skin that has started to form on the top there, which is what happens with all melt and pour. Whether you make it yourself or you buy it from a supplier, you're going to get that skin on the top of your melt and pour. That's no big deal either. You just mix that right back down into your batch. So this mold obviously is only going to hold a certain amount, and the rest of that we're going to put into an additional mold that I have sitting off to the side. Let's give it a spritz with some alcohol to try to pop some of those bubbles on the top there. And then we're just going to let that sit overnight. We're going to come back the next day. I don't cover my mold. I let it just sit out in the open, just like it is right now. Okay, the next day, there it is. Beautiful. Firmed up nicely. Let's get it out of the mold. That one little corner of the mold was sticking just a little bit, so I had to pick that up. Come on, buddy. Come on off of there. Nice and hard. There you go. Smooth. That liner has score marks in it on the bottom, which is pretty convenient. So we're just going to slice right on through here, slice a log off of the end of this. It's still a little bit on the soft side, and it's going to be like that. I will let this sit out in the open to air dry for at least 1 week, and I will check it to see what's happening. If all things are a go, then I'll go ahead and wrap it in my saran wrap. Gonna just cut off a little chunk on the end there, and then we're going to cut that into smaller little cubes so that we can melt it down. We're going to be putting the melted base into these little cupcake liners, the silicone cupcake liners. We have a regular sized one and we have a mini. That little plastic shot glass there is from the Dollar Tree, and the small little silicone liners fit in there perfectly so that it doesn't bow out on the top when you pour your base into it. Just cutting this into cubes now. To get things to evenly melt, it's just suggested that you cut them into little cubes that are pretty much the same size, uniform, just to have an even melt. I think I wound up putting this in there for a total of 4 bursts of 10 seconds each. Just give it a good stir after you're done melting so that everything is evenly heated throughout. We don't have any hot spots anywhere. Okay, all melted down now. Let's add some liquid colorant. I'm not going to scent it because this is just a demo. I'm not selling this particular little cupcake. This is just for this video. Stir that in real good. Normally I would use mica to color my melt and pour. I don't usually work with liquid soap colorants very much. little spritz of alcohol. There's a couple little bubbles on the top there. But look at how nice this is pouring. Nice and fluid. Beautiful. It's not stringy, not rubbery. Doesn't feel like plastic. It's just the right temperature too. It's not too hot. It's not too cold. I still have a little extra, so we're going to go ahead and pour that off into another little small silicone liner. Again, I put that inside of one of those little small plastic shot glasses because it holds it perfectly. And it really does prevent that top from bowing out. So we're going to spritz this again with a little bit of alcohol, get rid of those bubbles. We'll let this sit for about a half an hour. Okay. We are ready to start unmolding. Let's get this little small guy out of the wrapper. Look at how cleanly that unmolds. Nothing stuck to the liner, no residue left. Let's get this big guy out of here. Again, very cleanly unmolded. Nothing left in that liner there. There's no residue. Well, what would a soap video be if we didn't do a lather test? Well, we have to. Now, keep in mind, you guys, you're not going to get the same lather off of any melt and pour that you would your regular cold process or your hot process because you've added a whole bunch of solvents, and that absolutely does affect the lather. However, because you're using your own soap base to make this melt and pour, you're going to get a nice, thick, creamy lather just like you would with your regular soap bar. Now, this is my regular recipe, and I get bigger bubbles than this. But I also don't have solvents in my regular soap batches. But this is thick, creamy, luxurious. My hands feel fantastic. I mean, this is so thick and creamy, I would almost liken this to a shaving cream, a shaving soap. It's that thick and creamy. It's really, really delightful. It feels exactly like my regular soap bars do. Only difference is I don't have huge, big bubbles. I have small, tight little bubbles in a really nice, thick foam. It's really beautiful. My hands feel luxurious. Try this out for yourself, you guys. Do your tweaks. Let me know down in the comments below if you tried this and how this worked for you, if you did any tweaks of your own. But this is nothing to be afraid of, you guys. Make your own melt and pour. You know how much money this saved me? I did a check last night, and currently a 24-pound block of white melt and pour soap base at Wholesale Supplies Plus is $121.99. And that's without the shipping. Save yourself some money and make your own.